All right, so welcome into the live stream. Hopefully we got our technical difficulties solved for you guys. So thanks for sticking around. We are going to dive into MATIC today. Take a look at what MATIC is doing in relationship to this secretive plan with Ethereum. We'll also take a look at some sentiment for you guys, some very interesting things happening with both MATIC and also with Ethereum. So I just definitely want to jump into that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. If you're not familiar with our show, we jump into blockchain. We do a ton of technology adoption videos here, and we also get into some macroeconomic side of things from an investing standpoint, hopefully to help you guys in your research journey. Remember, these are market movers. Market movers are pretty simple. We'll pull together a ton of stuff, some insights, and show you a few charts, but really give you some insights as to where the research that our team puts together is going and how it may affect the crypto markets, but not investment advice. Hopefully this is your starting point. Let's get into the first topic, which is Polygon and kind of the evolution. This, I think, is the perfect tweet, and that is we're one day away from what they are calling we are in the end game now. And I love that. The Doctor Strange movie, if you've never seen that, the last final battle, everybody's worked so hard, you're right there on the edge, and there may be some sacrifices that you have to make, but hopefully not the case with Polygon. Lots of tweets out here. This coming from one of the co-founders. For a whole year, Polygon's tech team has been quietly working on the holy grail of blockchain infrastructure. This alone is a big statement. So very few people are aware of how strong and committed this team is and how groundbreaking their work is. In 2 days, we will show what we have accomplished. So some very interesting things. We showed a little bit about this the other day with our MATIC update video. There are some intriguing things, though, that are occurring, and the integration between a layer 2 and how an EVM works, especially with a roll-up, and how all this comes together. In short, the idea behind what Polygon may be trying to do here is make it even easier for you to transact within the Ethereum ecosystem. And that alone is a big, big achievement, will be a huge achievement, because obviously Ethereum being one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ecosystem out there, especially when it comes to transaction volume and NFTs. When we see the future of NFTs, all of this is going to be playing into it, which is why we're seeing so much emphasis on what the future of ETH2 can be. More on that in a second. One word, ZK-EVM. This is coming from Sandeep. Sandeep, of course, is the co-founder over at Polygon. We got to get him on the show. And I know we've been communicating back and forth with his team, and we definitely want to get him on to kind of really drill down into, after this event occurs, what this really could mean for the future of both Ethereum and Polygon, because this appears to be a way in which we're going to see some pretty significant fireworks. Another tweet by him: arise, awake, stop not until the goal is reached. And you notice here that the goal is not far away. And he's got hashtag top 3. I'm assuming he means top 3 alt coins, so let's keep building and working hard. Again, big news here. Obviously, they're anticipating some pretty market-shaking scenarios. It also could be why we're seeing a little bit of movement in the ETH price right now over the last few days. Definitely, obviously, with the news on that we're going to see a September merge date, or at least that's what's on the docket for now. Of course, that could still change. But the idea is if September comes around and we have an ETH2 merge, and you have a layer 2 that has the ability to handle lower gas fees and the ability to handle more transactions, you have the perfect match made in heaven. And I think that's going to be one to watch very closely. To get into a little bit of the sweaty nerd stuff, as we call it here, this is an article to really kind of break down what a ZK-EVM is. In essence, what we're looking at is a way in which Polygon can ride on an Ethereum virtual machine that would enable them, meaning a layer 2, to basically handle the transaction load and, of course, the ability to get very liquid, in essence. And that's one of the challenges that ETH has presented, hence why we're seeing the ETH2 project really kind of develop, is that overall transaction speed slow. The problem with mining on proof of stake versus proof of work, all that is a real scenario that is occurring. And if Polygon has been able to create the holy grail here and be able to basically be like a little Lambo jumping onto an interstate, ETH being the interstate, and you've got a new vehicle to essentially start transacting in at a much lower cost and also in a much higher transaction level that doesn't have congestion. Now you have some very interesting things happening, because when you have that occur, those two types of potentials of coming together could really put some pressure not only on other layer 2s, it also could put some pressure on layer 1. So lots happening. So on August 13th, the Ethereum Foundation stated in a regular update announcement on research and development progress that it had been funding a team to work on this ZK-EVM in the past few months. Vitalik also basically came in and said, hey, we think rollups will probably win in the short term for general purpose EVM calculations. This, of course, has been the big fallback. Now, the question will be is, Paul, why are we even worried about this if ETH2 is the solve end-all be-all? And in reality, the idea behind ETH2 is really to get into more of an ESG position. And environmental sustainable governance is one that in which ETH can truly be looked at as a clean blockchain. And if that in itself would be a huge win. Obviously, getting away from proof of stake is going to be a big way to avoid these, kind of those monikers of dirty mining, all those kind of things that come with what we see in the crypto space. So I think that still will be a very big key to where this goes. Some other aspects that were in this article that I thought were interesting is the problem, and I want to kind of go into this. And we know that the ZK-rollup solution needs to generate no knowledge proofs for transactions on layer 2s and pass them back to layer 1. And to generate ZK proofs, the processing of transactions needs to confirm the circuit proof specification. Simply put, it's the way to basically run the exchange, which is what MATIC will essentially do on Ethereum or with Ethereum. So this could be, as I said, one of the key things that happens in the ecosystem of Ethereum, maybe in its history. So pretty cool stuff, and I think MATIC obviously is playing this up in a big way. Obviously, we've seen MATIC on the move here recently. In fact, I'll show you some sentiment data on Polygon that is very interesting to look at. I want to jump to Polygon Daily here. What happened in Q2 2022? This right here is the ecosystem. Take a look below. This is just to kind of show you the wins that they've had. So you had Nightfall Mainnet come in, their launch of their SuperNet, $100 million ecosystem. The Polygon ID, we did a full video on the Polygon ID and DAO. Make sure and check that video out, because it really does break down what I think is going to be the future set of how Polygon works and why it's so important in the ecosystem of what's happening within Ethereum itself. And then you had USDT and C is coming to Polygon, and then also green, going green, we've seen that. And then a lot more coming. A lot of big brand partners, Stripe, Adobe, Bulgari, HTC, and more coming into this. And we, of course, saw Polygon being admitted into Disney's, basically their incubator, to basically, I think, build the next metaverse for what we will see maybe within the Disney theme park. So a lot happening within the Polygon ecosystem. Samdeep also went on to say, as well as we await the ZK-EVM, another tech giant chooses Polygon as the blockchain for the Web3 journey. This time it's Indian e-commerce giant, 20 billion in valuation, Flipkart doing nothing, NFT drops, and of course the Guardian is the one that reported on this. So Flipkart now in the ecosystem with Polygon. Again, these are going to be big wins, especially as they start to cascade in on where Polygon could be. The question I've had in the crypto pit, this would be one for you guys, is do you think Polygon could flip all the other altcoins? Could they be in a position where they could surpass what's happening at Solana at 15 billion, or maybe even Cardano in the high 15 billions? Because remember, Polygon's still hovering in around 7 billion in terms of market cap even right now with this nice little run. The weekly stats in brief, Polygon has been invited to Walt Disney's Accelerator program. We talked about that earlier. They also, in their V3 for Uniswap, 13.4 thousand users. That's a plus 16% in their TVL, has re-entered the top 5 DeFi apps list. And their transaction fees saved by using is now like $3 per tonnage. So pretty big deal here in terms of overall. That's just on this week. Another thing that they've done is similar to Solana. jumping into the Sol phone as Polygon, of course, partnering with Nothing, and Nothing meaning the Nothing phone. So when you look at not only the phone, but also Web3 functionality, the key here, I think, will be maybe integrated more so on the NFT side. And I think we'll see, and it's going to be interesting because whoever comes out with a great native Web3 device that has full functionality into NFTs, crypto trading, all those kinds of aspects, as well as ID and other aspects that will start to flow into Web3 more and more, I think is going to be a big winner here. And I've been skeptical of the Solana phone, but mainly because of the partnership deal that I've seen with Solana's phone, or the Solana phone, I should say, rebranded. But the Nothing phone is a little bit different. And this is because they're already integrated in. They've been and had some pretty successful launches. This, of course, was a starter that went out there, but they are a tech startup officially integrating in the Polygon ecosystem products to unlock the Web3 access. It's the whole point there. The launch is designed to take the Nothing beyond the consumer tech and make it one of the first sector to bridge real-world products with the fast-growing Web3 space. This, to me, again, gets back into the space of, think of a device that is able to handle the physical, digital world and connect those two dots, whether through e-commerce, Polygon potentially being that gateway, and all of this from an access level. So a lot could be happening in the very near future around where this phone is going. In line with Polygon's carbon neutral network commitment, go carbon negative by end of 2022. That's here, obviously, this year. And then, of course, Nothing has worked internationally, recognized third parties to assess their environmental impact. So they are also aligned in this whole idea of, really kind of the green initiative, where a lot of these projects have kind of gone in this direction, because it is a good thing because of the fact that it's going to be very, very needed when it comes to regulatory environments. So that's something that is going to be required. If you look at the Nothing phone itself, pretty amazing. I mean, they've got I think it's one of the coolest designs that is out there. And it is, let me show you a video on this thing just to kind of give you guys a quick look at it. We'll just back it up here for you. You can kind of see a little bit about this phone because, again, it has a lot of iPhone-esque styling. But again, I think there's going to be one big winner here in the Web3 phones. Now, is it the Polygon Nothing phone, or do we see something like Apple or maybe even Meta play into this? Could Android jump in and do something with what the idea around gaming and really kind of the evolution of what we'll see in NFTs? There's a lot of players that I think are still potential. The interesting thing here is that I would definitely not put the Nothing phone in and Polygon off the table. I'd keep them on the table right now. So lots of good stuff happening there. You can get this thing in black and white. I like that. I think I would go with the white one. Yeah, I think I'd go with the white one. I like the little glowing elements too. Some other things, traders are shorting MATIC in the current market. Should read this. And of course, we've talked about this over the past few weeks. Obviously, MATIC, when we saw the move with Disney, that was one pump. But I think this right now could be what we're seeing in terms of the positive pressure on MATIC, and also the very interesting position in terms of overall sentiment. So upwards we go. July 18th, MATIC crossed the 90-cent mark. That was a big threshold that they hit. This followed after the token shot off the roof in about a 20% bullish surge. Sentiment, of course, reported that MATIC jumped by 63% in the last week. And the numbers were pretty solid. If you followed our own power index, we were looking at the same kind of scenario all the way back into early last week. And I'll show you that here in the charts a little bit later. Make sure and hit like on our video. I know we had a little bit of a problem there on the live stream. We are going to get to some polls. But also, drop your questions in over on the sidebar. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can for the live stream, that's for sure. And the other thing to be aware of is we're trying to kind of really charge toward our next subscriber level, which is 350. So if you can, share the video out there with some people who are maybe trying to learn about blockchain, maybe getting into crypto for the first time. Tell them, come in and take a look at us. There's a lot of good channels out there. Hopefully you guys will share ours. Let's get into a couple other tweets here. Lido is also launching the staked ETH on Layer-2. So Ethereum is also scaling, and so is Lido. Again, big one there. Awesome in terms of what this might mean overall, I want to jump into another point right here on the summary of what they're doing, and it's pretty interesting here. So unveiling the plans on Lido for Layer 2. This will be interesting how this kind of intersects with the expansion of staked ETH across the L2 DeFi ecosystem, meaning most likely Polygon. This means staking with lower fees and access to the new suite of DeFi applications to amplify yields. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, wait, Paul, I'm not going to get into yields or get into staking right now. We're kind of at that point. But when we are in a position where market recovery starts to come back, we will see more of these tactics. The difference, I think, is it's going to be much more cautionary. So I think being on the right kind of platforms is going to be very critical. Lido, of course, being a pretty good one. Lido is committed to making Lido's staked assets widely available through the Ethereum Layer 2 as it evolves. And to that end, they're talking about integrating with agents to make the staked ETH available on the ZK Sync users and with Aztec. This is some of their tech of how they're rolling out. We're working on the next collection of integrations. My guess is unveiling in coming weeks. Stay tuned means hence MATIC. So lots happening here for sure. And I want to kind of get into a couple of things with you guys on our poll. And I know we have a poll coming. Do we have the poll up? Yeah, let's take a look really quick. Yeah, we will jump into that. So will MATIC outperform ETH in 2022? 53% of you guys are saying yes, but it's kind of I would still call this a draw. I mean, it's very close. But at the same, I mean, we had a title on MATIC in this, even though ETH was in there as well. Maybe there's a lot of MATIC people in here, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's a pretty solid run. I think both win in big ways, especially if Ethereum hits their deadline, which would be in September, I think September 19th, for the merge. That'll be cool. Let's jump to our sponsor. Of course, we want to thank iTrust. iTrust has been with us for quite some time, and if you're looking at long-term crypto investing through an IRA, this is one of the only companies out there that at least I would go with in the sense of, one, they've been around for a while, they have a tremendous amount of transactions, 5.5 billion in transactions, 175,000 accounts now, and this is the cool thing about joining with iTrust, because it is more of a long-term, it's a good tax position for you, always, consult your own tax and CPA to understand how an IRA can work. But there are some conversions that you can do with your IRAs that you have already. But all you have to do is very simple. Just go to the link that's in the description below. All you have to do is put your email address in. That'll start the process to learn about it. You don't even have to make your first deposit. The key is it right for you? Is it something that you want to do for your family or for yourself? Check the link below. If you do that, you're going to get a $100 funding reward that at least will help you guys get going into your first crypto IRA. So check that out. Let's get into another aspect here of what we will see, I think, with Lido, and that, of course, is going to be wrapping and unwrapping. Again, very cool tools. Lido has been one I think a lot of you guys are using in terms of staking ETH for quite some time. Some of you might be doing it within platforms too, which is fine, no problem there. But here is a good tweet on this, top gainers on Ethereum. Again, you look at let me kind of just blow that up for you. Right there, so you can kind of see some of the big ones that have been winning in that Ethereum chain in terms of overall gross. Of course, there's Voyager right there, so staking a ton of ETH. And then Lido Finance right behind them, so good positions there. Again, staking is always a question mark. If you have, and these are things that you guys have to kind of assess for yourself. If you have the risk tolerance there to go into these DeFi markets, just be aware, super risky. You got to be safe, and especially in these kinds of periods of times. However, there are some of them out there that are pretty consistent, so don't completely throw them out overall. First mover, America's Bitcoin holds 22,000, and ETH, of course, takes center stage again because of its run-up we've seen over this past few days, and I think almost 40% in terms of ETH, so it's kind of just doing a cakewalk right now. Overall. And I'm kind of curious, do you think we'll see a $2,000 ETH come into this cycle? Many people are pointing at a 25K, and we had Gareth on last week really kind of talking about what we could see with Bitcoin, a 25K Bitcoin before we see a 19. Gareth was leaning into a 25K Bitcoin happening. We are currently, I think, hovering around the 23K mark, so definitely up here in the last few days. So good stuff there. And I think the key here with Ethereum is now that we have a date and timing. Now there could be two things happening here, and I want you to think about this for a second. We have a run happening right now. ETH knows that. We've known that for the last week and a half that we've started to see the run occur. ETH could have, and the developers could have said, hey, let's go ahead and give a date out. Whether it's accurate or not, it will help overall. So just be aware of those kind of things that are happening out there in the marketplace. Don't forget, get your questions over on the sidebar. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Lots happening today, I think, in the sense if you guys are swing trading Bitcoin or Ethereum, where's your out point? I'd love to kind of get your ideas of where you guys are getting in and out. And if you're in a Bitcoin hold right now, if you got in on the 19s and maybe those $18,000 Bitcoins, are you looking at doing exits right now if we hit 25? I'd love to kind of get your feedback there. If you go to this tweet right here, Ethereum just went up 84% from the bottom of recent correction. That has started the last November. Bitcoin is up 30% from the bottom. If we see soon adding liquidity to the market by the Fed, some people are saying that we will see that. We should have a continuation of the bull market. I'm kind of in a disagreement with this. And again, it's back to my point of what we'll see next week at the FOMC. Sure, a lot of it is trailing, but I feel like we are stuck in this deflationary period that may be much more lengthy. And what I mean by that is this may become a normal thing of having a 5 to maybe even as high as 8% inflation on an ongoing basis. Now remember, there's been a lot of adjustments within the Fed that have tried to really correct this. And I don't think we have completely seen the full pressure just yet. Here's another tweet. In 2 months from now, Ethereum and ETH will completely transform for the better. If that occurs in September, big deal. ETH issuance will drop plus 3.7% a year to 0.5%. So that's going to be huge in terms of how they're going to be looking at overall cost. Transaction fees will be added to stakers' yields, boosted above the current 5%, and Ethereum will reduce network energy usage by almost 100%. So, I mean, 99.99%, that's pretty crazy. And also good, I think, at the same time when you look at it. Here's the rainbow chart on Ethereum. And again, it got right into that zone of fire sale. We saw it happen at the 1,000. I think the 941 was that nice, beautiful price that hopefully some of you guys got in on. And of course, right now we're starting to rail out there, ETH hovering around the $1,600 mark. So nice moves for ETH in the short term. As I said, we'll try to get to some questions. Here is Bitcoin currently on the 4 hour. So taking another green candle and holding out at 23.5. So this could be the breakout, guys, that everybody has been looking at for the 25K. Remember when we were on with Gareth a couple of weeks ago and last week, 2 points that he made that I thought were right on is that we could see the 25K first. And if we break resistance, the 28K was the next mark. Before that, before we see a potential fall off, August being the time in which we might see this. So we may have a couple of weeks of some nice gains here, depending on where you guys are at. So just be cautious in your trading. If you are doing trades and swing trading right now, but be aware of those kind of things. One thing that we do here on our channel that's unique, I think more so than anyone out there, is our power index. Now, our power index basically maps out two key things. It maps top-line sentiment and then a trigger sentiment that is known as amplification. Amplification is more of a leading indicator on how a trajectory or a decline might go in a token. One thing that I wanted to jump to, well, first let's jump to Ethereum. So here's Ethereum. So we had that nice little movement last week and then the bump over the weekend, and we saw ETH basically taking off right here, but we had nice moves coming in from last week at 59.80, then it went to 88, and then a 61 top line. And then amplification is right there nesting under it. Now, when amplification starts to intersect with top line sentiment, that's a good thing. It's a good thing in the sense that we might see more critical action happening in a positive way. When we see it transacting downward, that's a bad thing, obviously. But I want to also get to the MATIC chart. Let me jump over to MATIC real quick. And this one is very interesting because this is the first token that has happened in our last 12-week cycle that has intersected on amplification. So what I mean by that, MATIC is the one token that has now outperformed on overall sentiment to AMP. So AMP is at 65.34 and sentiment holding at 65.18. This is the first time we've seen this in this bear cycle that I still think we are in. And for MATIC to be doing this, a lot of things must be going right. Now, can it hold its price point? That's the real question. Do we see it really kind of blast through that dollar pressure to kind of move up? And again, some people are looking at $1.20 to $1.30 as a potential here. Remember where MATIC was just not too long ago. So there's some big gains happening in MATIC. I want to get to some of that before we get going. But as we also talked about a little bit earlier, make sure and get your questions over on the side. We'll get to some of those. I just want to take a quick look at the MATIC chart right here. So let's take a look here on the, well, let's go to the daily real quick and zoom out on that a little bit. I want to go back into the history here on this growth. And if you look at where this was right here on June 19th to where we are right now, that month, there it is, 176%. So as you can see, buying in at 34 cents, and of course, MATIC holding in right around 93 cents right now. So it does have a red candle on that, but I feel like we're going to see a little bit of a pop maybe as we start to see the announcement here. So big stuff. Let's jump to our questions and our poll. Let's take a look. Do we have another poll? Yeah, okay. Which crypto Web3 phone would you rather buy? The Solana Saga or the Polygon Nothing? 73%. Man, that is way lopsided here, guys. All right, well, that's okay. That's good. I mean, it's good for MATIC to get that kind of audience reaction for sure. Let's jump to a question or two. Giovanni, are you taking profits? Yes, I will be taking profits. I took one bag already. I'm setting on a couple of other bags that are in a position right now to take profits at about $1.05 to around $1.10. I would go in and probably drop another large bag of MATIC. With the merge coming up, how cheap is the gas fee going to be? What is good for gas fee and what is a good gas fee? Right now, gas fees are low, Saz. So I think right now, if you're doing ETH trades, you're experiencing very low gas. Well, I think it's the lowest we've seen in quite some time. So that's a good thing. I don't necessarily think this will be a complete restructuring of gas fees. I think gas fees will still continue to be somewhat, measurable. The question, I think, and I think is why we did this video, is I think MATIC, the Layer 2 solution, is going to be the true solution that is going to allow ETH to really run. And I think it's going to be a unique marriage, maybe for long term, could be short term. We'll kind of see how that all plays out. But I mean, just with ETH2 and what it can do, along with the right kind of Layer 2 solution, big news for this. Is ETH2 knocking down Polygon? Not at all. I don't think that happens. I think that's the point. I think there is a marriage that is occurring between these two at a time in which each of them need to be doing something to really kind of leverage up. Any MATIC competitors? IMX is a potential, sure. We do like IMX. We probably should do a video on IMX breaking it down. But right now, MATIC is really the leader, I think, in terms in the ETH ecosystem, in an EVM and a ZK-rollup. I think it is right now the solution that people are really kind of punching on. ADA! We love the ADA people. Yeah. Linda Williams, do you think MATIC can defy the bear market? I don't think anything defies the bear market. The macro pressures that we are under right now are they're just too high. And sure, we can see a little bit of looseness. This is something I've talked about on Twitter, is that we'll most likely see a little bit of looseness from the hedge funds. Remember, these guys are sitting on tons and tons of dollars right now, trillions that are sitting on the sideline waiting for those entry points. At some point, they're going to say, screw the inflation, screw the interest rates, we got to move on the market, and there's going to be movement within the market. Now, it may not be bear runs just yet until we get out of a recession, but I think it is a potential here for sure. Partnering with an Apple competitor would be the best approach for Web3 adoption. I think maybe. I think, we've talked and seen this happen with Samsung. Samsung, I think, is probably the best candidate, but don't overestimate or underestimate what might happen with the Solana phone or even with the Nothing phone and with MATIC's integration. Whoever wins that NFT crowd, in the early adoption phase, it's going to be like the iPhone was when it was trying to take over the BlackBerry crowd. Think of it that way. If you guys were around at that time, you know what I'm talking about. Or when the BlackBerry was trying to take over the Palm. If you go that far back in mobile, then you really understand the early days of mobile. This is where we are right now in the early days of Web3 phones. So very interesting stuff. Not willing to spend more than $50 on a phone, for sure. ESG is a scam. All right, so listen, ESG is something that, whether you think it's a scam or not, it is something that our regulators are going to push you hard on, okay? If you're a blockchain, you're going to get drawn to the hill, and if you're using a lot of power and energy, that's a problem, and it's going to be a problem that will consistently be a problem for years and years to come. So you've got to be able to get into a carbon neutral position. So I think they're going the right way. Will MATIC go below 50 in the near future? Okay, so yes, it could, and the trigger obviously will be Bitcoin if we see a 14K Bitcoin occur. Remember, a lot of things have to happen that are kind of bad. CPIs need to continue, will continue. Interest rates will continue to print, and a recession will loom. And if those things continue on, we'll see a drawback into the market. And if you look at some of the trading signals that we've shown here on our channel, you kind of already understand that. Now, how far under 50 cents? I don't know if we get it back to a 30 cent. We may get back there. Remember, at 30 cents, I think MATIC was at 30 and Bitcoin was at 17 or 18. So they have a lot of correlation for sure. Feel good green. We see a pump and then everybody is bullish. Okay, well, I don't think everybody's bullish. I'm still very highly skeptical of the market. So my position is highly cautious right now. I'm not buying anything. I'm looking at exit positions, both on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche. Sold Avalanche at 24. Felt like we could ride a little bit longer. And it was a big sale on Avalanche for me. So something that I think you guys should be looking at as well, because there is going to be another buy-in point. It's coming. Don't worry. Who wins between Sandbox and Decentraland? Sandbox. Marketing and Algorand sucks. Yes. They have a solid, yes, you're right. You are dead on. I've said this so many times on the show, is that they just don't get there. What do you think about Axie Infinity? I like it. I'm invested. I'm too invested in it. The only thing that saves Axie is its staking rewards. So if you have a lot of Axie, just go stake it, get those rewards, and try to do dollar cost averaging that way without acquiring more tokens. I know the guys at Axie will hate me for saying that, but it is the truth. I like to see MATIC and Sandbox and Disney. That's going to be fantastic. It's going to happen. Left ETH years ago when they couldn't figure out scaling. Well, we may have a scaling solution now, so be on the lookout for that. Will ADA do well this year? I want to DC again. I think ADA is up and down. Again, always what I say. It's a love-hate relationship with ADA. I just feel like it's slow in terms of, Charles gets me every time when I say this, slow in terms of my own understanding of development. Also, I need bigger partners. I know some of the partners that they talk about are big, or in their minds are big. I just need bigger partners. I sold a nice bag this week and took profits on MATIC. Good for you on the Disney jump. That's a good move. And it's not often you can take an easy money during a bear market. For sure, taking profits, guys, is the thing you should be doing right now. You're going to get a chance to get back in, I think, in a very good position. So just listen up to that. I think that for sure. That's what we're doing. I shouldn't say this is not financial advice. It's what we're doing. We're going in right now, taking profits where we can. We might do some little swing trades on some of the tokens that look very bullish right now, but know that we have to be taking short trades, understanding small increment wins, and then getting ready for better positions in the market. All right, you guys are tuned in. Make sure and jump us over here on YouTube. If you're on a podcast side of things, it's the easy place, of course, catching us. Hit like and subscribe. You'll get a chance to see all of our breakdowns, some of our sentiment data, and best of all, you get a chance to see some of our best interviews with all CEOs. We have a ton of new guests and hosts here on the show that are doing a whole series with us. With Gare Soloway, we've got Hustle coming in on some, Hustlepedia coming in on some gaming stuff. We've got a new team coming in over from Hut 8 on some mining. Gala Games is joining us this week. We've got a lot happening, so don't sleep on PBN. You're going to catch a lot of new stuff out there. If you guys want to reach me, it's out on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.